Hello, my name is CynthiaAliceanderson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. We are now completing 3 years of being on the air, and I wanted to personally thank you for all of your support. As a listener, as you share the podcast on your social media pages, and for your financial support. We would not be where we are today without this amazing support, which is in over 80 countries and 150,000 downloads worldwide. So I thank you, dear friend. I'm grateful we get to walk this journey together, and I cannot wait to see what we're able to do in another 3 years. Thank you again, dear friend, and blessings on the journey.
Supportek Staffing presents The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 159, a conversation with Ken Lovern. And now your host, Reverend Cynthiaaliceanderson.
Hello and welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is CynthiaAliceanderson. I'm the host, and I am here in the field today. I'm not in 818 Studios, but I am. I have a funny way of taking a sabbatical. I took some time away, and while I was away, I've had the great pleasure and benefit of visiting with some really amazing individuals. And one of those individuals is with me today. I am with Ken Lovern in his studio in Mission, Kansas. And this is a really cool place to be. So Ken, thank you and welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for coming over. It's always good to have you here in Electric Lovern land.
Yes. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this many keyboards in a room this size.
Yeah. I used to have almost as many keyboards in like the living room of my house, and my wife moved in there, and a friend came over and visited, and he was shocked. He's like, your house is like a keyboard museum. And he looked at my wife and he goes, how do you let him get away with this?
And she said, probably not for long.
Right. We moved within the year and built this space out behind the house.
Well, but it's awesome because it's private and it's, there's a lot of sacred creation energy in here. I always love being in here. You have a beautiful home, but this is my favorite spot.
Yeah. It's just nice to create a space. I had it in a bedroom in the house, which I was comfortable in. But it was the same sort of thing where I was in that space all the time. I had things in there that meant something to me. I think it's a really good idea to curate sacred spaces wherever we are.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, I just realized I want to back up because if you're new to the show or it's been a while, you may not have heard Ken Lovern being on the show before. And Ken is both a dear friend and a very accomplished musician in general, but he's most known probably for his role as a B3 jazz organist at the Green Lady Lounge. He's also had a Green Lady Radio as well and done a lot of music directing, producing, composing. So if you're in the jazz world, you definitely know who Ken Lovern is. But if you're just in the spiritual world or just study spiritual things, you may not be aware of him and his music. And Ken is also very special to me. He's somebody very important in my life, and we speak on a weekly basis. So yeah, Ken, I want to just say again, welcome to the show. And to our listeners, hey, I'm glad you get to hang with one of my favorite people. This is a good day.
Well, it's so great. It's so great to be here with you.
Yeah. And, I know last time you were on the show, we were talking a little bit about, times they are changing and, things, we are still in a tremendous time of change. But it has shifted, as we were saying, right before we went on the air, we were talking about, some shifts you've made. And so just share with our listeners, from your perspective, what's the last year been like for you? You were gigging every night, you were working in a club, and now where's your head at right now?
Well, there was sort of a forced slowdown for most people. And some people's jobs continued unabated, but most of them changed somewhat. But for people like me, I worked in live music. We completely stopped working. Right. And, people who were waiters in restaurants, they completely stopped working. Mm-hmm. And with a few exceptions, and people were trying to figure out things to do. But so there was almost like a a forced change placed upon the world where it's like everybody's on sabbatical. Everyone's on sabbatical.
Exactly.
Right. At the same time.
A forced sabbatical, yeah.
Right. And so I started writing those songs that you can see on my YouTube channel, which they're hampered by me singing because I'm not a good vocalist, but they're pretty funny songs. I went back and listened to it. It's been a year since I wrote them now. And they're just songs of, dealing with COVID, dealing with being home, dealing with not working.
Yeah.
And there's a Stay Your Ass Home.
Right.
I Can't Love You If You Won't Leave the House. That's one of my personal favorites.
Yes.
I had to clear that one with my wife before I could do it. I was like, now check these lyrics with you. Because it was, basically, I can't love you if we're here all the time. I'm good for a couple hours a day.
Love you, honey, but I need a break.
I'm only good for a couple hours a day. But, so I started writing those songs. And, I was lucky enough to be able to be a performing musician playing 5, 6, 7 nights a week for years. And I'd wanted to do more as a composer. And so it's like, if not now, when?
Yeah, you have the time. You can't say you don't have the time.
And so I started composing just with whatever was going on with me with those songs, which were vocal tunes, but I also was doing instrumental songs and then working on a musical, a big project, it was really hard to do in fits and starts to do that.
It is.
And so it was nice to have big blocks of time to work on that. And a lot of the musicians I know have done that. There's been a lot of composing and a lot of stuff done. And we've been lucky enough to have some support. They got, gig payments through so people could, musicians and gig workers could get unemployment. Right. Which saved the day. I mean, that would have been a disaster for us.
Well, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the songs you wrote because, I'm a subscriber. I'm a regular. I'm a top fan. And I thought those songs were great because, that you were writing, pretty early on because I think it was describing everybody's experience. And I wondered if for you, that was helping you process the whole thing. I think it had to, right?
Certainly. And that's a lot of times I'll write songs and maybe I don't even know it, but then it really helps me process something. I wrote one when the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this last year. I was really upset about the game because I felt like the officiating was extremely one-sided. And I watch a lot of NFL.
Right.
And it's easy as a losing team to bitch about the officiating. And sometimes you'll see one call in a game. You're like, wow, that really turned the game. And that was a questionable call. But there were at least 3 like that.
Yeah, there were. Yeah.
And all against the Chiefs. And Ray Lewis and several people. I mean, people who aren't Chiefs fans were saying that. And so, I wrote a song. It's a sad day in Tampa Bay,
Right.
And
I forgot about that one.
It really helped me process that. I felt a little better.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one that really helped me. I can't think which one that was now, but writing the songs definitely helps me kind of. And I think I hear visual artists talk about that, where they'll do a painting and it really helps them process some emotional stuff. And I don't think. As you have to be maybe even you don't have to be a professional artist for that to work. Mm-hmm. All sorts of things. Journaling. I mean, that's something I do too. When I feel like I need to process something. Something's just really hanging me up or I'm feeling challenged by an issue. Just journaling about it will help. But songwriting's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. I know, my last little sabbatical time I took, which was, I think it was a month, and I wrote a couple songs, and it was just about waiting. It was about waiting. And honestly, in the last year, I've come back to that song because I feel like, it's a different kind of waiting time, and it's really different too for me right now. We were talking about forced sabbatical. It's if you work a regular day gig, probably the idea of a sabbatical is something maybe new. It's not vacation exactly, but it's like where you just take time from your regular gig and, be about your inner process, and so I know for you that songwriting was that, and the time I'm in right now, this has been a profound time. It's been strange because, always when you're going into a sabbatical, you have things you want to do, things you think you're going to do with your time. And some days I had to just relax and do almost nothing. Other days I had to sit and cry. Other days I had to journal, and so I was just really in the moment and in the process of whatever, was coming up for me to do, I would just do. And so to our listeners, I want to just say, it doesn't matter if you work at a bank or you're a CPA or you're in international business, you can set aside time, for your sacred process. And it would be it's a really great thing to do is what I'm saying from my end, because I never know exactly what it's going to be, but I always get blessed by it. And it always brings me a great deal of peace. So like I've never regretted, taking time away.
I think making space and making room for the divine ideas to come to us is really important. And that doesn't take a month-long sabbatical. That might just take 20 minutes of just being quiet. But making time for that, I think, is huge. And it's been very helpful for me. So much of our lives we're exchanging time for money.
Yes.
And that's sort of how a lot of our economy is set up. But when we have those really great ideas, I think we can leverage our time much better, and making space. It can be 20 minutes. It can be a morning off, but it's easy for me. I'm a doer, and I know you are as well. We like to get stuff done,
I know.
But we've both also learned the importance of taking time away and just being.
Yes.
Because if I get too wrapped up in doing, it just doesn't work as well for me. I'll get a lot of stuff done, or I'll check that stuff off the list, or I'll accomplish this career goal or whatever, but I'll feel empty. And I'll realize that, well, I climbed the ladder, but my ladder was against the wrong wall.
I know. Yeah, it's like something I just really experienced in this time, this awareness. It's like there can be, like you're saying, just a doing, and that's, there's nothing wrong about it, but like you say, it's kind of empty. But if we have this, I don't know if I have the words for it, this like a little bit more grander awareness just of who we are in it, I was with a friend, one of the many friends that I met with during the time on sabbatical. And we were doing this activity together that was new to me. And so I realized I was kind of stressed. And so during the activity, I was like, what if I could just enjoy this? Like, what if I could just be present to this, even though I don't know what I'm doing? And then all of a sudden, my friend's sitting there and he goes, wow, you just got really good, like right then. And all I did was like shift my awareness. To the outside, nothing looked different, but my inner.
And you didn't suddenly take a month-long course in it.
Right, exactly.
Your knowledge didn't change other than just your ability to just.
Right. And so then I just started kind of doing these, just a little bit deeper breath, and a little bit I was watching myself, be tense in this activity. And so when I just had the awareness that I could just enjoy it, it was like my whole body relaxed. My mind kind of became a little bit more not so rigid.
Elastic.
More elastic. Exactly. And there was all this joy in those few moments, and then I would notice a few moments later, tension would want to come back. So since then, it's been a little bit of coming back into this awareness over the last, many days. It's been very, very helpful. It's been very, very helpful in my process. But Ken, say, I definitely want to have you play, but I want to hear a little bit more about, your process in composing. Like, how do you just sit down and let the song come to you? Like some of those ones you were doing early on, was it just out of your process, or how did those come forward for you?
The songs that are in the, that were like the first COVID batch of tunes, Hunker Down.
Right. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one.
Hunker Down. And they came to me. We were driving back from Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Because we didn't know how things were spreading. This was March a year ago. And people down where we were weren't taking any precautions.
Oh, no.
And,
yes.
And so...
the great state of Florida.
Well, and it was our friends, too, the people we were staying with, we're all over the board. Some were just hanging out with the people they were with. Other people were going out to bars, and we didn't know what was safe or what. So we headed back. And on the way back, I'm driving in the middle of the night, and those songs started coming to me. And I was in character. That's why I'm singing with a kind of a Arkansas accent. I'm singing with a hillbilly accent. In those songs, which is natural to me from my roots. I only have to go back a couple generations, and it's people living on dirt floors in Arkansas. But I was in character on those songs, that's not my normal process.
No.
But so the first few I sang in character because that's how I conceived them. And then as it went on, I went back to just singing them as myself. I think also maybe it was easier to sing them in character just because I'm not a great vocalist. And so I just don't have great pitch. And so being in character made it easier for me to stomach them. The one song I was thinking of that really helped me process stuff was at the first of the year, I wrote that song, I Can't Watch the News. Because I was getting so upset about the news things, and I was being radicalized. I watched that show, The Social Dilemma.
Oh, yes, I watched it too.
About being radicalized by social media, and I realized that's happening to me.
It's happening to everybody.
And I was like, because I've always been very much accepting of all opinions and ready for open discussions, and I was becoming much more polarized. And of course, crazy things were happening. And that song really helped me. I really felt better after I wrote the song. I sort of helped de-radicalize myself. So for vocal tunes, the process is pretty different. For instrumental songs, a lot of times it's just I sit down at the instrument and I just start to play, or something's interesting to me or whatever. And I just, whenever those gifts come, and it's a lot of times it's when I first sit down in the morning, and that's like my favorite time to play. And I'll just practice. I'll just practice the songs I'm going to play that night or exercises I have or whatever. But sometimes I sit down and I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. That progression. Oh, that's interesting. What if I do this? And when that stuff happens, I always honor it. And sometimes it messes up. I was telling you this week, I was ready to get back to work on doing my gigging stuff. And I sat down to practice Monday morning, and now I've got a song. 2 days later, I've got a song, but I'm not ready to play my gig tomorrow night.
But you will be. Well, now is that song ready to play for our listeners today or no?
Well, it's a demo version. We could... All
right, well, let's think about maybe you can even work on a little bit, and then we can drop it in later. But let's do that. Let's end this first segment, friends, with a little music from Ken Lovern. So we'll be right back, right after these brief messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partners, Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, they want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia_Aliceanderson.
welcome back. We're glad you're with us. That was the tune entitled It's Not That Bad by Ken Lovern. And I'm here in Ken's studio. And I meant to ask you, does your studio have a name? What's the name of your studios?
Well, nothing official, but yeah, I call it Electric Lovern Land.
Nice.
Yeah, Electric Lovern Land, or sometimes I've called it Vintage Key Studios. It was called that on one album cover. I think the Maria the Mexican record, it's billed as Vintage Key Studios. But Electric Lovern Land, or my backyard keyboard fort.
Yes,
that's really what it is.
It is.
I had a friend came over and goes, dude, you have an awesome fort. Because we used to all build forts in our backyard.
Totally. I had one.
Yeah.
So, although ours was called the hut because it was like a real, you could have lived in ours. We had tunnels.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's that song on the OJT record, Backyard Improv Jam.
Oh, I love that one because the nature sounds.
Has the birds, yeah. And that came, I was in here one morning and I was like, man, those birds are loud. And you'll hear them tomorrow morning. They're loud here, especially in the spring. The cardinals are just, really loud. And so I just put out a couple mics and recorded them and mixed that in because we were doing that OJT New Originals record and we're playing all these original compositions that we've been playing in the club at Green Lady Lounge. And I just felt I could, as I was mixing things or as we were playing them, as I was listening back to the versions of them, evaluating takes, we did a bunch of takes, I could hear us just like trying. We were trying so hard, and I could feel it. And it just didn't feel good to me.
Yeah, it just wasn't flowing.
And we did this one day. We had like 4 tunes we wanted to get done that day, and we'd probably done 4 or 5 takes of each. And it's just like, nobody wanted to do any more of those. And I was like, let's just play whatever. Let's just play something. Let's just go. And E flat minor, so it's basically a black note keyboard jam.
Yeah.
For piano players will do that. Those black notes. And so it was E flat minor. And it actually, as I was working on the record, it was my favorite song because we didn't feel we weren't trying to do anything. We weren't trying to realize a given composition. We were just playing what happened. And we got really lucky. There was a couple, we were doing chord changes and Brian's playing melody and I'm taking different changes out of the key. And we just got lucky in terms of it fell together. Because we didn't just stay in E flat minor. I was using chord progressions and Brian's playing melodies and
on guitar.
And it worked out. And that one, Kevin Frazee actually started it out on a tongue drum I bought in Belize, and it's E flat minor. That was actually what chose the key. I'm remembering now was that tongue drum.
Cool. Those are cool.
It's somewhat unpitched and harmonic, right. But if you're going to give it a pitch, it's sort of that black notes, and that was my favorite piece, especially while I was working on it because it just felt so in the flow.
Yeah, and I know as you were talking, I was just thinking, this is really how life is meant to be lived. And I think when you're a musician or an artist or, you have some way of performing, for me, it's speaking, but there's some way in which you feel so clearly, when you're in the flow. And I think sometimes when, this is what I've heard from people, when you're doing a job where you're sitting at a desk or you're, in meetings or, you're not always necessarily really aware of that, but I think you really can be.
Oh yeah.
And just like I was saying last half about that activity with my friends. So, as we're talking, I'm just being reminded that, this is how life is meant to be lived. We get the idea that stress, that worry, is how life is supposed to be, that anger and resentments and us versus them is the only way the
most
world
of us
works.
were trained that way.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
were trained that way. We were given that message. And
just think about as a musician, how you were trained. Most of us were definitely not trained to just be in the flow, So it's definitely a learned, behavior, but it does put you in it's like a combination of a surrender state, but it's also a huge creative state at the same time. It's like the part of you that wants to control kind of has to take a seat and let the soul of you, divine of you, whatever the space, dictate. It's like you become a instrument of something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I was thinking too, Ken, because I know you very well personally, and I also know, as you're moving and changing, and this last year, like for so many of us, has really changed us. The way we work is different. Some of us, the way we live is different. What's on your heart about that for you? Like, has your perspective really changed about where you're going? Like, where are you at right now with all that?
Well, I want to retain some of that time and some of that space to create. And so, things are starting to reopen now, and I'm playing gigs again. I'm playing 4 nights a week. So that's my challenge now, is to go back to working, and I'll be glad to be making, money again, gigging. But to maintain that space of being able to have time to create and compose. So I think that's one of the challenges as things reopen, remember the good stuff. What are the things that have been good of the last year, and keep some of those. I've had a lot more time to take walks with my wife and my dog and just be, and burn a fire in the fire pit. You almost couldn't buy a fire pit for a while because everybody was
buying them. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know. I was trying to get wood and I had the same problem.
Right. And that's great. I mean, the fact that people have learned to enjoy their homes and enjoy, their families. And so I think, for me, is really retaining that. And I was back to playing gigs for a few weeks and then had a week off for my daughter's spring break. And so I'm sort of still in that beach vacation mode. Yeah. And I want to hang on to that as much as I can. I've got a thing, and this at the bottom of my journaling, kind of my goal list, or my weekly goal list and awareness list, my mission statement, all that. At the bottom of that is nothing's more important than feeling good.
That's a great affirmation.
And that's what I try and judge everything by. That nothing's more important than feeling good. And if what I'm doing, if I'm not feeling good about it, I need to stop. And there's some things you got to mow the yard, or you got to get this done, or whatever.
Yeah, there's certain things that have to get done, but you're talking about, on a regular basis, right? Feeling in the flow of life and being in joy because of your choices,
right?
The larger life choices,
and we have a lot more control over. I have a lot more control over that than I sometimes realize, or sometimes would acknowledge.
Yes,
I have a lot more control over what I'm doing. It's really easy for me to feel like I have to play these gigs. I have to say yes to gigs. I have to, but I don't really have to. I can, if it's not one that I'm feeling, I don't have to, and that's challenging. Because I'm exchanging time for money,
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But that's not the only way that the universe can bring us abundance.
Yes. Very, very true.
And so I think that's part of what I'm trying, as things are reopening and things are going back to, some sort of new normal, is to hold on to some of the peace I was able to find, while I wasn't working, because it was almost like practice retirement for me. Yeah. This last year, I'm 55. And so it's like, that was like practice retirement, How long do I have to wait for the real one?
and you think you could do that?
Yeah. How long am I waiting for the real retirement?
I know, it's so true. And I've had so many changes in the last, really year and a half, even 2 years. I've had a lot of change, but, what I'm seeing for myself is I'm so much on the other side of that change now. And my choices are really creating something new for me, and I think, so much of this last year for so many of us, it felt like, the change wasn't really optional. It's like time to change, and it's now, whether you want it or not. And I don't care if you want to go in the office, you can't, and all that stuff, and masks and not masks, and, all of that. But, as we were going through all that, I was, every day, checking in with spirit, what's mine to do. And now I'm coming out of this sabbatical time with a great deal of clarity, even more than I thought I might have. And it's very different than I thought it might be. But it is all moving in the direction of my soul desire, and so I was just thinking for our listeners, as I was listening to you, it's like we forget how much power we have at times.
Right.
That literally like every day, the time we wake up, how we wake up, how we want to order our day. I mean, even if you work 9 to 5, well, are you getting up at 7:30 and creating this tornado of activity to try to get to work? Or are you getting up a little early, meditating in the morning, taking a nice walk? How are you ordering your day? Like just basic things like that. Because you may have a 9 to 5, but you still have a lot of control within that day. You can also, every hour decide to, like check in. Am I in my awareness? Am I, being conscious of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking? So it's like, for our listeners, some of us are in work situations that are hard. I know we have military that are listening in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have people all over the world. So I want you to know, if you're on a night guard duty, you can still move into more awearness. You still have choice.
You've got more challenges than a lot of us.
You got more challenges than a lot of us, and you still have a great deal of choice.
Yeah.
In what you think about, what you focus on, what you make your life about.
You get to choose what you focus on.
Yes.
You can't, active duty military is an example of, people who don't get some choices that most of us do.
Absolutely true.
But you still can choose what you focus on most of the time.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And so I just, we always come back to, we want our listeners to be empowered by this show, to grow, prosper, and evolve. And it seems like so often we come back to the very basic and yet very profound idea that it begins in our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
How are we thinking about the situation we're in? How can we shift our thinking to move us into a higher awareness? How can we shift our thinking to make better choices? I heard many years ago, I had a mentor. Her name was Sharon Poindexter. And I believe you knew Sharon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she had a program called Yes to Life.
Mm-hmm.
And she talked about yes to life choices. And I keep thinking, I think I'm going to do a whole course called Yes to Life because, that was 25 years ago. I learned that and it still comes back to me like, every day, am I making these yes to life choices or am I making, no to life choices? Basics from, am I getting in the car and not putting on a seatbelt? Am I smoking cigarettes instead of eating good foods? Am I...
Well, getting uptight and then focusing on getting more uptight instead of de-escalating myself.
Yeah. Am I focusing on what everybody's doing wrong or am I trying to have a life of peace, working on my inner process? So that's just on my, that's just on my heart today. I had forgotten until I started talking that you were acquainted with Reverend Sharon.
Oh, yeah.
Poindexter.
And who, Eddie, what wrote the song Say Yes to Life?
Yes.
What's his name?
Eddie Watkins Jr.
Eddie Watkins Jr. Yeah, and he came to Union Church Overland Park and we got to perform that with him, Say Yes to Life. And of course, I had written on the lyrics the first time, not on the music, the chart that Fred Albers did. The first time I got it, I wrote "Say Yes to Wife." I scratched out "life" to "wife."
Well, that's a key to happiness too, Ken.
And I showed that to Eddie. He thought that was really funny.
Oh yes, I bet. I bet.
But I mean, that's a choice we get to make. It is. It's perfect just the way it is. And I always try and tell me when things happen that aren't what I want, when things go awry, I get upset and I get angry and I blame other people and I blame myself, whatever. But then I'll come back and just go, it's perfect the way it is. And I just, that helps me process it, to just affirm it. It's perfect the way it is. It's opening up new doors for me. It's helping me move on. It's helping me transition. I may not be able to see it right now, but it's for good.
Yes. Yes. Well, Ken, thank you so much for being on the show today. I feel like I want to leave our listeners with a little bit more of your music, and I'm not sure which one we're going to choose yet. Do you have one off the top of your head, or do we just want to?
Well, we streamed these shows from Black Dolphin in the fall, and they're still up, on Facebook. They're still on Facebook Live.
Right.
All these live recordings we did, and we took some audio off and have kind of been treating that audio, and they were, live videos with high professional quality audio, and we're just kind of toying with, well, we've got just the audio too, and we can tweak on that.
Yeah.
So there's all these recordings of songs we composed in the fall, essentially.
Right.
And yeah, there was the suite of it's not that bad, and then it's all good.
Oh yeah, right. I think I'd like that. Okay, well, Ken, thanks so much for being with us as always. Ken Lovern, we're coming to you live from
Electric Lovern Land.
Electric Lovern Land. But anyway, friends, thank you for joining us as always. Blessings on the journey. We always hope, our desire is that you took something away from the show. And as always, the talent, the energy, the consciousness of Mr. Ken Lovern. I know he was a blessing to you the way he always is to me. So blessings on the journey, dear friend. And we will see you next week.
We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Supportek Staffing. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthia/Alice/Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.